Have you ever imagined your hands covered in filth while cleaning your dying father-in-law, while your wife is busy shopping for luxury brands in Paris? Whose heart wouldn't shatter? At the very moment when a man's life hangs by a thread, they laugh above his suffering. Ethan was humiliated, trampled on, and finally thrown out like trash right after the soil on his father-in-law's grave was still wet. But they forgot one thing. The prayer of the oppressed pierces the heavens, and an old yellowed will hidden inside a dusty drawer was ready to become a sledgehammer, one that would crush their arrogance in a single blow. Prepare your heart, because this story will make you cry, rage, and feel deeply satisfied all at once. Before the story begins, write in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so stories with meaning can continue to grow and bring you even more powerful stories. The sharp stench of ammonia mixed with outdated medicine assaulted the senses the moment the bedroom door closed. Inside the small 13 by 13-foot room tucked away in the far corner of the mansion, time seemed frozen. Heavy, dust-covered curtains were rarely opened, leaving dimness as the only companion to the frail figure lying helplessly on the old metal bed. Mr. Richard Harrison, once a towering figure, a respected real estate tycoon, was now nothing more than skin wrapped around brittle bones. His breathing was labored, rattling, as if fluid clogged his throat. Ethan let out a long breath, wiping sweat from his temple with the back of his hand. He had just finished cleaning his father-in-law's waste. It was never easy. After the stroke, Mr. Harrison's stiff body felt twice as heavy when Ethan had to turn him from side to side. Yet Ethan never complained, not once. "Just a moment, sir. I'll change the spray so you can sleep more comfortably," Ethan whispered softly. Though he knew the old man couldn't respond, a faint blink was enough to tell him that Mr. Harrison was still aware. As Ethan carefully adjusted the blanket, loud laughter suddenly exploded from the living room. The sound was cruel, sharp, like a knife slicing through the suffocating silence of the bedroom. It was the voice of his wife Emily and her mother Margaret. Ethan looked at Mr. Harrison's face. Tears pooled in the corners of his wrinkled eyes. He heard everything. "Rest now, sir. I'll get some warm water," Ethan said, pretending not to notice. When he opened the bedroom door, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The hallway's polished marble floor gleamed coldly under the lights. As Ethan walked toward the living room, the medicinal odor clinging to his clothes was overpowered by the scent of Chanel perfume and fresh lilies. The living room sparkled beneath a crystal chandelier. An Italian leather sofa was buried not by people, but by stacks of luxury shopping bags in black and orange. Emily stood before a large mirror, admiring herself in a deep burgundy evening dress that hugged her body perfectly. "How do I look, Mom? Do I look fat?" she twirled. Margaret sipped tea from a fine English porcelain cup. "Perfect, Emily. Your social club friends will be speechless at the gala dinner. How much was it?" "Oh, cheap. Only about $1,200. It was on sale from 2000, Emily replied casually. Ethan froze. That amount could cover 3 months of Mr. Harrison's physical therapy, which had been postponed because Margaret claimed there was no cash available. Ahem. Emily turned sharply, her smile vanishing. "Ugh, Ethan, what are you doing here? You stink. Did you just clean Dad again? Don't bring germs in here. This is my new dress." "I just need warm water. The dispenser in his room is empty," Ethan said quietly. "Then hurry up. Don't stand there ruining the view," Margaret snapped without looking up at the receipt. Ethan hesitated. "Emily, Mom." "What now?" Emily barked while filming her new heels for Instagram stories. "Dad's pain medication ran out this morning. His adult diapers are almost gone. The doctor also prescribed a new blood thinner. It's about $900. Silence. Margaret slammed her teacup onto the table. "Ethan, do you think we're a walking ATM? You just asked for money 3 days ago." "But he's in pain," Ethan said, voice shaking. Emily scoffed. He's old. Pain is normal. You're just bad at taking care of him. You both just spent tens of thousands shopping, Ethan said, eyes fixed on the bags. You can't spare $900 for his medicine? Emily stepped forward, jabbing her manicured finger into his chest. Know your place. You're just a live-in husband, unemployed, living off my dad's inheritance, and you dare lecture me about money? You forced me to quit my job to take care of him, Ethan snapped. Because your salary was pathetic, Margaret sneered. If there's leftover grocery money, then buy the medicine. If not, let him endure it. Sick people should learn patience. Enough. Go back to that room. Your smell kills my appetite, Emily shouted. Ethan clenched his fists. If he fought back now, who would feed Mr. Harrison? Who would change his diapers? He swallowed his pride whole. Sorry for bothering you, he said flatly. Back in the dark room, Mr. Harrison reached out with trembling fingers. I heard everything, he whispered. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Ethan smiled gently, wiping them away. You don't need to apologize. I'll handle the medicine. A lie. His savings were gone. His gaze fell on the last thing he owned, a worn motorcycle key on the table. His first bike, bought with his first paycheck. For you, sir, Ethan whispered. Outside, Emily and Margaret laughed. Inside that dim room, Ethan made a sacrifice that would later flip his destiny 180 degrees. Ethan had just returned from outside. The garage felt emptier now, and unbearably sad. His old Honda Tiger, his beloved motorcycle and silent witness to his youth, was gone. It had been sold to a used motorcycle dealer for $400, a painfully cheap price for a lifetime of memories, yet priceless when measured against a human life. In his right hand, Ethan carried a plastic bag filled with a full month's supply of medication, premium adult diapers, and several pears, meant to be juiced to help Mr. Harrison's digestion. Thank God, at least he's safe for the next month, Ethan murmured, trying to comfort himself, even as his chest ached from losing the bike. When he reached the bedroom, a heartbreaking sight greeted him. Mr. Richard Harrison was coughing violently. His face had turned red, saliva spilling uncontrollably and soaking the pillow. Apparently, while Ethan was gone, no one in the house had checked on him even once. Oh, God, sir. Ethan dropped the shopping bag and rushed forward, lifting his father-in-law's head and gently patting his back. Easy, sir, easy. Breathe slowly. After the coughing subsided, Mr. Harrison looked utterly exhausted. His sunken eyes stared at Ethan, filled with guilt. I'm thirsty, he whispered. Patiently, Ethan gave him water through a special straw, then prepared lunch. Today's meal was smooth porridge mixed with protein supplements, also bought with the money from selling the motorcycle. Come on, sir, just a little. You need strength, Ethan coaxed, carefully guiding the spoon to the old man's stiff, slightly crooked mouth. 1 spoonful. 2. On the third, Mr. Harrison struggled to swallow. The porridge spilled from the corner of his lips, dripping onto his chin and neck. I'm sorry. It's okay, sir. You're sick. Don't keep apologizing, Ethan said gently, wiping him clean with a wet tissue. Just as Ethan was cleaning his father-in-law's chin, bang! The door flew open without a knock. Emily stormed in, wearing tight workout clothes that showed off her curves, expensive headphones hanging around her neck. The moment she entered, she clamped a hand over her nose and mouth, her face twisting in disgust as if she'd stepped into a landfill. Oh my God, this room stinks! It smells like a corpse, Emily shrieked. Can't you clean Dad properly? The smell's leaking into the hallway. Don't you know I have guests coming this afternoon? Ethan took a slow breath, forcing himself to stay calm. It's the ointment smell, Emily.
And he vomited a little earlier. I'm cleaning it now." Emily didn't care. She didn't even look at her father. Her eyes darted around the dusty old vanity in the corner of the room. She yanked open drawers roughly, rummaging through them. "What are you looking for?" Ethan asked. "Where's Dad's wallet? The platinum debit card. Where is it?" Emily said urgently. "I need to check out my online shopping. My credit card's maxed out." Ethan set the porridge bowl down and stepped in front of her as she reached for Mr. Harrison's wardrobe. "Emily, he's sick. You walk in without asking how he is, and all you care about is his ATM card." "Move!" Emily snapped, shoving his shoulder. "Don't lecture me. Dad's money is my money too. He doesn't need it anymore. He lies in bed all day. What's the point of money piling up when his daughter can't enjoy it?" "Watch your mouth," Ethan raised his voice. He glanced at Mr. Harrison, who had squeezed his eyes shut. Tears slipped out again. What kind of parent wouldn't be shattered hearing their own child speak like that? "That money is for his medical care, Emily. I sold my motorcycle today because your mother said there was no money left." Emily laughed coldly. "You sold that piece of junk? Good. It was just taking up space. Besides, Dad's old. The doctor already said his chances are slim. Why waste money extending the suffering of someone who's already dying?" Those words weren't a slap. They were a hammer to Ethan's sanity. "Get out," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "Before I forget you're my wife." Emily scoffed. "Threatening me now? Know your place." She finally found the leather wallet hidden beneath folded clothes in the lower drawer. Her eyes sparkled as she snatched the black card. "There it is. Bye." As she turned to leave, the tip of her expensive sneakers accidentally hit the bedside table. The bowl slid. Crash! The porcelain shattered across the floor, porridge splattering everywhere, most of it landing on Emily's pristine white Nike sneakers. 1 second of silence. Then, "Ah, my shoes!" Emily stared at the mess, then glared at Ethan as if it was his fault. "Look what you did. Who puts a bowl there like that? These shoes cost $2,000. I've only worn them once." "You kicked the table yourself," Ethan said. "I don't care," she screamed. "Clean it, now." Ethan sighed and crouched down to pick up the broken shards. "I'll wipe your shoes." "Not the shoes, the floor," Emily snapped, pointing. "Clean it until it shines." Ethan reached for a cleaning rag hanging on a chair. Emily kicked it away. He looked up at her, stunned. "What do you mean?" Emily smiled, a cruel smile that erased every trace of beauty from her face. "Don't use that. That rag touched Dad's body. I don't want my floor smelling rotten." "Then what should I use?" "Your mouth," Emily said casually. Ethan froze. "You're insane." "I'm serious," she folded her arms. "Consider it a punishment. You don't work anyway. That food would be wasted. You're used to leftovers, right?" She leaned closer, whispering, "Lick it clean, or tonight I tell Mom to kick you out and leave Dad here to rot alone without care. Choose." It was a lethal threat. Emily knew Ethan's weakness. He wasn't afraid of being homeless. He wasn't afraid of poverty. He was afraid of leaving Mr. Harrison in the hands of monsters. From the bed came a harsh gurgling sound. Mr. Harrison tried to rise, his hands clawing at the air, moaning in rage, wanting to protect his son-in-law. "Don't!" he screamed inside, but only broken groans escaped. Ethan saw the terror in those old eyes. Slowly, he lowered his head. His pride as a man, as a husband, he crushed it for the sake of devotion. "Okay," Ethan whispered hoarsely. "I'll clean it, but I'll use tissues." He crawled for the tissue box, quickly wiping the porridge and sweeping shards into a trash bag, refusing to look at Emily. Emily laughed, satisfied. "Good boy," she mocked, patting his head before walking out. "It stinks here. I'm going shopping." The door slammed. Ethan remained kneeling, shoulders shaking, not from weakness, but from rage barely contained. "Ethan," the weak voice snapped him back. He turned, softening his expression. Mr. Harrison was sobbing uncontrollably, pounding his chest in self-blame. Ethan embraced the frail body. "It's okay, sir. Just a little drama," he lied gently. "Forgive Emily," Mr. Harrison whispered. "I will endure anything for you. Just focus on getting better." Inside, he swore, "Let them trample me today. Let them humiliate me. I will care for him until the end, and one day they will realize who they truly stepped on." Downstairs, Emily's car engine roared away, leaving behind duty, conscience, and karma slowly preparing its own reckoning. But Ethan's trial was far from over. That night, the atmosphere in the mansion was suffocating. Dr. Harris, the family physician who had treated Mr. Harrison for years, stepped out of the room with a grave expression and pulled Ethan aside. "Ethan, his condition has deteriorated," he whispered. "Oxygen saturation dropped below 90%. Fluid is filling his lungs. He needs to be transferred to the ICU immediately for suction and ventilator support." Ethan rubbed his face. "How much?" he asked quietly. "For a private ICU admission and deposit, prepare at least $30,000 tonight. Otherwise, we'll need to convert this room into a semi-ICU. Oxygen tanks, suction equipment, and a professional nurse. You can't handle this alone." The doctor didn't finish the sentence, but Ethan understood. Respiratory failure could happen at any moment. An impossible number. The motorcycle money was already gone. "I'll talk to the family," Ethan said weakly. The storm had only just begun.
After the doctor left, Ethan stepped into the living room. For a brief moment, he hoped, desperately, that his wife and mother-in-law's conscience might finally awaken for the sake of the family patriarch's life. That hope shattered instantly. 3 large Ramova suitcases stood neatly in a row. Winter clothes, thick coats, and fur-lined jackets were scattered across the leather sofa. Emily and Margaret were busy folding clothes, humming cheerfully. Their faces glowed with excitement, not a trace of worry. "Mom, Emily," Ethan called. Margaret glanced at him briefly, then returned to folding her coat. "What now? Asking for money again? There's none. This month's budget is closed." "This isn't about groceries," Ethan said urgently. "It's an emergency. Dr. Harris just left. Dad's condition is critical. He needs to be admitted to the ICU now, or at least we need oxygen equipment and a professional nurse. It'll cost around $3,500 tonight." Silence. Emily's hands froze mid-fold. She and her mother exchanged a look. Then they laughed. Dry laughter. Empty. Without empathy. $3,500? Margaret scoffed. "Do you think money grows on trees? For your information, all our cash has already been converted into euros." "Euros?" Ethan frowned. His eyes landed on airline tickets lying on the table. New York to Paris. Departure the day after tomorrow. "You're going to Europe?" Ethan asked, disbelief creeping into his voice. "At a time like this, when Dad's dying?" "Exactly," Emily snapped, standing with her hands on her hips. "We're stressed, Ethan, stressed by this gloomy house, the smell of medicine, the smell of sickness. We need healing. We need a mental reset so we don't lose our minds dealing with a father who never gets better." "Dealing with?"
Ethan stepped closer, his eyes burning. When was the last time you changed his diaper? When was the last time you fed him? I'm the one taking care of him, alone. You two just shop. Watch your tone, Margaret shouted. That's your duty since you're freeloading here. She continued coldly. We booked this trip a month ago. Flights paid, hotels paid, tour guides paid. The total cost is tens of thousands of dollars. If we cancel just because Dad goes to the ICU, all that money is gone. Gone. Ethan's chest rose and fell violently. You're talking about profit and loss over Dad's life. Mom, that's your husband. Emily, that's your father. If he dies while you're taking selfies in New York, won't you regret it? Margaret stepped closer. Her face was stone cold. Listen carefully, Ethan, she said slowly. Richard's chances are slim. The doctor said it's only a matter of time. So why waste thousands extending the breathing of someone who's about to die anyway? That's called financial efficiency. Ethan stared at her in horror. So your decision is final? Margaret turned back to her suitcase. We're leaving the day after tomorrow. 2 weeks. You stay. Take care of the house. Take care of him. And if he dies while you're gone? Ethan asked quietly. Emily answered casually while checking her reflection. Then you handle it. Just don't bury him yet. Put him in a morgue fridge or something. Wait until we get back. Why? So we can attend the funeral. People would get suspicious if we don't post grief content online. You're sick, Ethan whispered. You're truly sick. Margaret waved dismissively. Call it whatever you want. Now move. We're packing. And don't expect a single dollar for the ICU. If you want him breathing, sell a kidney or something. Ethan backed away slowly. There was no point arguing with stone. No point reasoning with demons in human form. To them, Mr. Harrison was no longer a man, just a broken ATM. Back in the bedroom, Mr. Harrison's breathing grew heavier, rasping like a drowning man. Easy, sir, Ethan whispered, holding his cold hand. He checked his pockets. Empty. His eyes scanned the room. Nothing left. Then his gaze fell on his left ring finger. A white gold ring band, the symbol of his marriage to Emily 5 years ago. Once it meant everything. Once he believed he'd grow old with her. Tonight, it was just cold metal chaining him to suffering. Without hesitation, Ethan pulled the ring off. It resisted slightly. His finger had grown thin, but finally slid free. A pale mark remained on his skin. His heart felt lighter. Forgive me, Emily. This marriage means nothing to you anymore, but your father's life means everything to me. That night, while Emily and Margaret slept dreaming of Paris, Ethan slipped out into the drizzle. He ran to a 24-hour jewelry shop near the downtown market and sold his wedding ring. The price wasn't much, just enough to rent a large oxygen tank for a week and buy a second-hand portable suction machine. Not enough for ICU, not enough for a nurse, but enough to keep Mr. Harrison breathing tonight. When Ethan returned home soaked, carrying the heavy oxygen tank, he crossed paths with Emily heading to the bathroom. She noticed the empty ring finger. "Hey, where's your wedding ring?" she asked suspiciously. "It became your father's breath," Ethan replied coldly, and locked himself in the bedroom. Emily shrugged. "Good, then I won't be embarrassed walking with a foreign guy in Paris. People won't think my husband can't afford jewelry." Inside the room, Ethan fitted the oxygen tube into Mr. Harrison's nose. The terrifying gasps softened. Breathing became steady. Ethan sat on the floor, leaning against the bed, exhausted. But he knew the real battle would begin once those two women left. The morning of departure. The mansion, usually silent, was suddenly loud, not with medical urgency, but travel chaos. Suitcase wheels thundered across marble floors, clashing with Mr. Harrison's labored breathing in the back room, a cruel harmony. Ethan had been awake since 4 a.m., checking oxygen pressure and cleaning Mr. Harrison with warm water. A black airport taxi SUV waited outside the gate. Margaret wore a long brown autumn coat and a Burberry shawl. Emily wore knee-high boots and a beret, dressed as if New York were snowing. Passports, tickets, power bank, Margaret checked. All set, Emily replied, fixing her lipstick. Then she froze. Oh, I almost forgot. What? Margaret panicked. Not goodbye content with Dad. I have to post something, otherwise followers will question why I'm traveling when he's sick. They marched into the bedroom. Ethan stepped aside. Emily pulled out her newest iPhone. Her cheerful face instantly shifted into a perfectly crafted, sorrowful expression. Sad face, Mom. Hold Dad's hand. Click, click, click. Then video mode. Guys, it's so hard leaving my dad like this, but this trip is part of our effort to find alternative treatment abroad and recharge mentally so we can take better care of him later. Please pray for him and for us. A quick kiss on Mr. Harrison's forehead. Video stopped. Perfect lighting, Emily smiled. I'll add sad music on the plane. Ethan stood frozen. That's it? He whispered. No apology? No real goodbye? He's conscious. He hears you. Margaret adjusted her shawl. Enough drama, Ethan. We're late. Planes don't wait. And with that, they walked out, leaving behind silence, oxygen, and a man who refused to abandon his humanity.
Margaret glanced briefly at her husband. Her eyes were cold, empty of love. Richard, I'm leaving now, she said flatly. Take care of yourself with Ethan. Don't trouble him. If your condition flares up again, hold it in until I get back. Without another look, she turned away. Ethan chased after them onto the front porch as they headed toward the waiting airport taxi. Wait, Ethan called out. As they were about to get into the car, he added desperately, Ma'am, some emergency cash. What if the oxygen runs out? What if the power goes out? I don't even have money for a basic inhaler now. Emily rolled down the tinted window. She flicked a single red bill into the air. A $10 bill fluttered down and landed in the muddy driveway, still wet from last night's rain. That should be enough to buy phone credit, she said casually. If something happens, just text. But remember, she stared sharply at him from behind her sunglasses. Don't call unless it's important. Don't video call when we're shopping. And if Dad dies, she paused, a cruel smirk forming on her lips. Don't announce it in the family group chat. Wait until we land back in New York. I don't want my vacation ruined by condolence messages blowing up my phone. Got it? Ethan stared at the $10 bill on the ground, his mind numb. Got it, he replied quietly. Enjoy yourselves, on top of Mr. Harrison's suffering. The window rolled up. The luxury taxi pulled away slowly as the automatic gate closed behind it, carrying laughter, expensive perfume, and cruelty far from the house. Silence. The massive two-story mansion suddenly felt like a giant tomb. Only Ethan and Mr. Richard Harrison remained. Ethan picked up the muddy bill, wiped it clean, and slipped it into his pocket, not because he needed it, but because he respected the face of the American hero printed on it more than he respected his wife and mother-in-law at that moment. He walked back toward the rear bedroom, and there his heart shattered. Mr. Harrison was crying, not the silent tears from yesterday. This time his frail chest shook violently. His mouth was wide open, producing no sound, like a scream trapped in his throat. His right hand clenched the inhaler so tightly his knuckles were white. He knew. He understood. He had just been abandoned. That the woman he loved for decades and his only daughter had chosen Paris over his final breaths. Dad! Ethan rushed forward and embraced his father-in-law, pressing the old man's face into his chest, letting those aged tears soak his t-shirt. Ethan! Mr. Harrison's voice cracked, raw with pain. Let it out, Dad, Ethan whispered, stroking his frail back. Cry, scream if you can.
Don't hold it in." Ethan swallowed his own tears to stay strong. "It's just the two of us now," he said firmly, locking eyes with him. "But don't be afraid. I swear to God, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here 24 hours a day. I'll be your legs, your hands. We'll fight this together." Mr. Harrison stared at him. In the eyes of the poor son-in-law he had once underestimated, he saw sincerity he had never found in his wife or daughter. Slowly, his grip shifted from the inhaler to Ethan's arm. It was tight, desperate, like a man clinging to the last pillar in a storm about to drown him. Outside, the skies over New York City darkened. Thunder rolled in the distance. But inside that small room, an unbreakable bond was formed between a discarded father and a loyal son. And without realizing it, Margaret and Emily's departure that day opened the door for someone else to return. Someone from the past. Someone who would change Ethan's fate forever. Night 3 after their departure. On the third night after Emily and Margaret left, the sky over New York wept relentlessly. Heavy rain poured since afternoon, fierce winds rattling the windows of the mansion. Lightning flashes lit the dark halls, casting eerie shadows on the walls. In the back bedroom, Ethan was still awake. The wall clock read 11:45 p.m. EST. Mr. Harrison was restless. Since evening, his eyes kept darting between the clock and the door, like he was waiting for someone. "Dad, are you in pain?" Ethan asked gently, checking the IV line connected to the portable hospital-grade infusion pump. Mr. Harrison shook his head weakly, then motioned toward the bottom drawer of the wardrobe. Phone, he rasped. "The old Nokia? The one with the swollen battery?" He nodded. Ethan retrieved it. Miraculously, it powered on. Apparently, Mr. Harrison had been secretly using it when Ethan was asleep or in the bathroom. "Who do you want to call?" Before he could finish, a knock echoed from the side door of the house, the service entrance. Knock, knock. Soft, rhythmic, clear against the roar of rain. Ethan froze. Who would come at midnight through the side door? "Open it," Mr. Harrison ordered urgently. Samuel Jenkins." Ethan remembered. Samuel Jenkins, the former trusted attorney of Harrison Group Inc. Margaret had fired him a year ago, replacing him with a younger, more flexible lawyer. "Quickly," Mr. Harrison insisted. Heart pounding, Ethan grabbed an umbrella and rushed to the side door. When he opened it, cold rain lashed his face. Standing there was an elderly man in a soaked black suit, clutching a leather briefcase tightly to his chest. His wrinkled face was stern, glasses fogged by breath. "Mr. Jenkins?" Ethan gasped. "Ethan, right?" the man replied gravely. "May I come in? Mr. Harrison sent an emergency message. He said he was alone." "Yes, please." Inside, Jenkins removed his wet coat and scanned the silent mansion. "Where's Margaret and Emily?" he asked sharply. "They went to Paris, on vacation," Ethan answered, ashamed. Jenkins' jaw tightened. "Insane. Completely insane. I thought Mr. Harrison's message was exaggeration. They really abandoned the old lion while he's dying." Without delay, Jenkins went to the bedroom. The moment he saw his former boss, frail, gasping, in a room not worthy of a billionaire, his professional composure collapsed. "Oh God, Richard." He clasped his former hand, tears forming. "Why didn't you say anything all this time?" Mr. Harrison smiled weakly. "Thank you for coming." "I'll always come," Jenkins said firmly. "To hell with Margaret firing me. I work for you, not for that money-hungry woman." Mr. Harrison gathered what little strength he had left. "Will," he whispered. The room tensed. Jenkins nodded, opened his briefcase. Laptop, voice recorder, legal documents, and a notary seal. "Ethan," Jenkins said, "lock the door, sit here. We need witnesses. This is an emergency amendment, and I'll record everything." Ethan obeyed. "Mr. Richard Harrison," Jenkins started recording, "are you of sound mind and acting without coercion?" Mr. Harrison blinked firmly. "Good. We are revising the 2015 will. Previously, 50% to Margaret, 40% to Emily, 10% to Charity. Do you wish to change this? Unable to speak clearly, Mr. Harrison asked for paper. With shaking hands, supported by Ethan, he wrote. The letters were crooked, but unmistakable. Emily, 0. Margaret, 0. All assets to Ethan. Ethan's heart stopped. Dad, please, Ethan whispered. I don't deserve this. I never asked for it. Mr. Harrison slapped his hand away weakly, eyes blazing with final authority. Jenkins cut in firmly. Do not refuse. This isn't about money. It's about justice. He doesn't want his wealth wasted by those who abandoned him. He wants it to go to the one who truly cared. Ethan trembled. This will start a war, he said quietly. Jenkins met his gaze. Then I'll be its general. He typed rapidly. All real estate, majority shares of Harrison Group Inc., all deposits, and this residence are hereby transferred to Ethan. The wife and biological daughter receive nothing due to proven neglect and abandonment under domestic care statutes. The storm outside roared. Inside, destiny was rewritten.
Samuel Jenkins slid the freshly printed documents from his portable printer across the table. Mr. Harrison, he said gently, since your hands aren't strong enough for a full signature, just place your thumbprint on the notarized seal. I'll record the entire process. Mr. Richard Harrison pressed his inked thumb firmly onto the paper. The pressure was strong, decisive. When he finished, he exhaled deeply and smiled in relief, as if a crushing weight that had sat on his chest for years had finally been lifted. Done, Jenkins said, closing the folder and returning it to his briefcase. I'll file this with a senior notary first thing tomorrow morning so it becomes legally binding before anything happens. He stood and placed a firm hand on Ethan's shoulder. Remember, son, until the time comes, your mouth stays shut. Don't let Emily or Margaret know anything. Let them feel like they've won. Let them fly high so the fall hurts that much more. Ethan nodded silently. He looked at Mr. Harrison's face, now calm and peaceful, like a man ready for a long sleep. Thank you, sir, Ethan whispered. Not for the wealth, but for trusting me. Mr. Harrison closed his eyes. His breathing became steady. I'll take my leave, Jenkins said quietly. Take care of him, Ethan. It won't be long. Maybe 2 days. Maybe tomorrow. Ethan escorted Jenkins out through the back door. The rain was still heavy, washing away any trace of the lawyer's arrival. No cameras recorded it. The house's CCTV system had been disabled long ago by Margaret, so she could host parties freely when Mr. Harrison was still healthy. Ethan returned to the bedroom and sat beside the bed, staring at the old man who had just entrusted him with a monumental responsibility. On the bedside table lay a scrap of paper, the original handwritten note. Everything to Ethan. Ethan crumpled the paper and burned it carefully in an ashtray, leaving no trace Emily could ever find. All right, sir, he murmured as the flame consumed the paper. If this is how you chose to punish them, I'll help you carry it out. I'll make sure the tears you shed tonight are paid back in full. Thunder cracked in the distance, like the opening bell of a war yet to come. Meanwhile, in Paris, Emily was likely laughing in a warm cafe, unaware that back in New York, she had just become homeless. The final moments. 2 days after Jenkins' visit, Mr. Harrison's condition reached its lowest point. The afternoon sun over New York disappeared behind thick gray clouds. Inside the bedroom, silence reigned, broken only by the rhythmic hiss of the oxygen concentrator. Ethan hadn't moved an inch from the bedside all day. He knew the signs. His legs were ice cold up to the knees. His breathing wasn't heavy anymore, just short, rapid gasps. His hollow eyes stared at the ceiling, unfocused, as if seeing something beyond this world. Dad,
Ethan whispered, leaning close. "Do you want some water?" No response. Mr. Harrison's blinking slowed. Suddenly, his chest jerked. His breath stopped, then released in one long exhale. "Dad!" Ethan panicked, checking the pulse at his neck. It was barely there. This is it. Even knowing Emily and Margaret didn't care, Ethan's conscience forced him to try. This was still a father's final moment. A father deserved to see his child one last time. With trembling hands, Ethan opened WhatsApp and tapped Emily. Video call. Declined. Again. Declined. "Please, Emily, just once," Ethan whispered. Third attempt. Connected. The screen filled with a dimly lit luxury restaurant, jazz music, clinking glasses, and the Eiffel Tower glowing in the background. Emily appeared on screen, beautiful, radiant, perfect makeup. Annoyed. "What is it?" she hissed. "Do you know what time it is here? We're at a gala dinner with important people." Ethan ignored her and turned the camera toward the bed. "Emily, look at Dad. He's critical. His breaths are fading. Please, talk to him. Guide him. This might be the last time." Emily froze for a second. Then Margaret leaned into frame, champagne glass in hand. "What is it?" Margaret asked. "It's Ethan. He says Dad is critical." Margaret clicked her tongue. "Oh, please, drama again. Yesterday he was critical too, and he's still alive. End the call. It's embarrassing, showing a dying man at the dinner table." Ethan stared in disbelief at the screen. "Ma'am, this is your husband. Emily, this is your father. Just say you love him." Emily leaned closer to the camera, eyes blazing. "Listen carefully, Ethan. You're a terrible caregiver. Your job is to keep him calm, not to ruin my vacation. You're killing my mood. Don't contact me again until morning." Click. The screen went black. Ethan slowly lowered the phone. His heart felt shredded. He turned back. Mr. Harrison had seen everything. Though his vision was blurred, he heard their voices. He heard the rejection. A final tear slid from the corner of his eye. Ethan threw the phone aside and wrapped his arms tightly around him. "Dad, you see me, right? You're not alone. I'm here. I'm your son. I love you." Mr. Harrison's gaze shifted from the dark phone to Ethan's face. Peace replaced pain. Acceptance. His lips moved faintly. Ethan leaned closer. "Let go." Ethan nodded through tears. "I'm here. It's okay." One final long breath escaped Mr. Harrison's lips. His chest fell and never rose again. Silence. Only the oxygen machine hissed uselessly into a body that no longer needed it. "I'm here, Dad," Ethan whispered, kissing his cold forehead. "You're not in pain anymore. You're free from them." He turned off the machine. Total silence. Ethan didn't call Emily again. What was the point? Instead, he went next door and knocked on the neighbor's door. "Sir, Mr. Harrison has passed." That night, neighbors, people Margaret once considered beneath her, came to help. They called the funeral home. They helped clean the body. They stayed. Ethan handled everything himself. No luxury wreaths, no hysterical family cries, just quiet dignity. At 2 a.m., Ethan sent a single message to Emily. "Dad passed away at 5:45 p.m. Funeral service tomorrow at 10 a.m. If you want to see him one last time, book a flight now. If not, I'll bury him myself." Unread. Probably sleeping peacefully in a 5-star hotel. Ethan looked at Mr. Harrison one last time. "Rest now, Dad. Tomorrow I'll take you home. And after the ground settles, the will begins to work." The funeral morning. The funeral home smelled of white lilies and rosewater. A black flag hung limply at the gate. Chairs were neatly arranged, filled mostly by neighbors and former longtime employees of Harrison Group, Inc. Ethan sat beside the casket. His eyes were swollen, but dry. His tears had run out the night before. He wore a simple black suit, calm, resigned, reading quietly from a memorial program. At exactly 9 a.m., an airport taxi screeched to a stop at the gate. Emily and Margaret stepped out. Perfect makeup, perfect outfits, head-to-toe designer black. Emily immediately raised her phone and went live on Instagram. "Guys, I just arrived. Pray for me. Pray for my dad." She signaled to her mother. 3, 2, 1, action. A hysterical scream shattered the silence. "Dad, don't leave me!" Emily ran toward the casket, collapsing dramatically, caught by mourners just in time. Margaret followed, clutching her chest. "Richard, why did you leave so fast? I didn't even get to apologize." From a distance, Ethan watched quietly. The performance had begun, and the judgment was only just starting.
Emily and Margaret threw themselves onto the casket. Emily wailed hysterically, shaking the coffin so violently that Ethan had to grab its edge to keep it from tipping over. The mourners whispered among themselves, their faces filled with sympathy. Such deep grief, they thought. The poor wife and daughter. They had no idea that just a few hours earlier, these two women had been savoring Kobe beef and caviar on a first-class flight, laughing somewhere between Los Angeles and New York. "Easy, ma'am, easy, Emily," an elderly neighbor murmured, gently rubbing Emily's back. Emily turned her head slightly toward the phone she had placed against the back of a chair. Still live. She subtly adjusted her position, making sure the camera caught her tear-streaked face at the most flattering angle. Ethan stood frozen, watching the performance. His stomach churned. When Emily's sobbing paused for breath, she leaned closer to Ethan. Her expression shifted instantly, 180 degrees. The grief vanished. Her eyes turned cold, sharp. A look meant only for Ethan, hidden from the crowd by the casket between them. "Why didn't you wait for us to come back before washing Dad's body?" she whispered venomously, her teeth clenched. "You did it on purpose, didn't you? So we'd look late, so you could look like the last-minute hero." Ethan met her gaze calmly. "The body had to be prepared immediately, Emily. It wouldn't have been fair to make him wait for you to land. Besides, weren't you the one who said not to disturb your vacation?" "Shameless man," Margaret hissed as she stepped closer, crocodile tears still streaking her cheeks. "Just wait. We'll settle accounts after the guests leave." She straightened her back and suddenly screamed again. "Oh God, forgive my sins, Lord. I was such a sinful wife." The performance continued all the way to the cemetery. At the graveside, Emily raised her hand just as the workers were about to lower the coffin fully. "Wait, stop for a second." She handed her phone to Ethan. "Hey, can you take a photo of me and Mom by the grave? Make it aesthetic, okay? Shoot from a low angle so it looks dramatic, with Dad's black Nissan in the background." Ethan took the phone with trembling hands, barely containing his fury. As his father's body was about to be returned to the earth, his own daughter was thinking about Instagram aesthetics. "Hurry up," Emily urged impatiently, posing beside the temporary wooden marker, wiping fake tears from her cheek. Click. "Done," Ethan said curtly, shoving the phone back in her hand. Once the burial ended and the mourners slowly dispersed, the masks began to fall. By late afternoon, the house was silent again. Only Ethan, Emily, and Margaret remained in the living room. Emily lounged on the sofa, her legs stretched across the coffee table, busy editing funeral photos. Her sorrow had completely evaporated. "This is insane, Mom," Emily laughed excitedly. "My engagement is through the roof. The live stream during the burial hit tens of thousands of viewers. Brands are already offering sponsorships, funeral flowers, memorial catering. This should cover our flight tickets easily. Margaret sipped her iced sweet tea calmly. Her face looked refreshed, no trace of the shortness of breath she had theatrically displayed that morning. "Good," she said casually. "Oh, and Emily, call my contractor tomorrow." Ethan, who was sweeping dried mud from guests' shoes off the marble floor, stopped. "Contractor?" he asked quietly. "For what, ma'am?" Margaret looked at him as if he were an annoying insect. "For renovations, obviously. I'm sick of your father's outdated taste. In that back room where he was sick, the smell of death still lingers. I want the walls torn down. I'll turn it into a walk-in closet for my bags." "Renovations?" Ethan straightened. "Dad's grave is still fresh, ma'am. It hasn't even been 7 days. Is it appropriate to talk about renovations now?" "Hey, servant," Emily snapped, slamming her phone down. "This is our house. Dad's house means my house and Mom's house. You don't get a vote." She stood and stepped closer, looking down on him. "And speaking of rights, I think your job here is done, Ethan." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" "Well, Dad's dead," Emily said coldly. "You were only here to take care of him. The patient's gone, so the caregiver is no longer needed." "You want a divorce?" Ethan asked quietly. "That can wait," Emily replied. "What matters is that you move out of my bedroom. I'm uncomfortable sleeping next to you. You still smell like hospitals. Besides, I'm rebranding myself as a rich single woman, the sole heiress of Harrison Group. Having a poor husband like you ruins my image." Margaret chuckled. "You hear that, Ethan? Know your place. We'll give you 1 week, until the 7-day memorial prayers are ended. You can stay to help clean chairs and serve food. Consider it your final act of devotion. After that," she added flatly, "pack your bags." Ethan looked at the 2 women before him. Once he had loved Emily. Once he had respected Margaret. Today, nothing remained. He smiled. A thin, unreadable smile. One that made Emily pause because she saw no fear, no sorrow. "Fine," Ethan said calmly. "I'll leave if that's what you want. But remember, Dad's will hasn't been read yet." "Oh, please," Margaret scoffed, waving her hand. "A will? It's obvious. Everything goes to the wife and daughter. Who else would it go to? You dream on." "We'll see," Ethan replied softly. "Now go make us coffee," Margaret ordered. "We're exhausted from crying all day." Ethan turned toward the kitchen. He wasn't angry. He felt pity. Pity for how high they were flying on wings of greed, unaware that Ethan was holding the scissors that would cut those wings clean off in just a few days. The 7th night. The 7-day memorial had just ended. Neighbors and orphaned children left with boxed meals in their hands. The blue tent outside the house was being dismantled. The once prayer-filled atmosphere faded into silence. Ethan was rolling up carpets in the living room. His back ached, but his movements were efficient. For 7 days, he had been treated like a servant, sweeping, washing dishes, taking out catering trash, while Emily and Margaret sat like queens accepting condolences. "Ethan," Margaret's voice broke the silence. She stood at the top of the staircase looking down. "Are you done?" "Yes, ma'am. Just need to move these to storage," Ethan replied, wiping sweat from his brow. "Good," Margaret said coldly. "Then your duties are officially finished." She descended the stairs, followed by Emily, who had just finished removing her makeup. Emily dragged along an old, faded brown suitcase. Ethan recognized it instantly. The same suitcase he had brought with him 5 years ago. Bang! Emily threw it down the stairs. It tumbled violently and landed right at Ethan's feet. The broken lock snapped open. Its contents spilled across the marble floor. Worn t-shirts, cheap slacks, and several religious books. "That's all your stuff," Emily said casually, inspecting her nails. "I packed everything, even your torn underwear. Disgusting. I hated touching it." Ethan stared at the scattered clothes, then at his wife's face. No guilt. None at all. "Tonight?" Ethan asked quietly. "You're kicking me out tonight?" 11 p.m., Margaret replied sharply. "When else? The construction crew arrives tomorrow morning. No place for you to sleep." "But ma'am, it's already late. At least let me stay one more night. I'll leave at dawn." "No," Emily cut him off. "I don't want to take risks. People say keeping poor people around too long brings bad luck. Better you leave now, take the negative aura with you, just like Dad's spirit." Ethan exhaled slowly. He crouched down and began picking up his clothes one by one. He folded them neatly and placed them back into the suitcase. Calm, unrushed, no anger. That calmness irritated Emily. She wanted him to cry, to beg at her feet. Instead, he looked relieved. "Why are you so quiet?" she snapped. "No begging? No severance pay?" Ethan zipped the suitcase shut and stood tall. "Why would I beg people without hearts?" Ethan said flatly. "And as for money, I don't need your dirty wealth. I came to this house with this suitcase, I leave with it. I'm not taking a single needle that belongs to you." "Good," Margaret sneered. "Now get out, and never step foot in this elite neighborhood again. It's embarrassing if the security sees you wandering around like a homeless man." Ethan dragged his suitcase toward the front door. His steps were steady. At the handle, he paused. Without turning back, his voice echoed heavy through the room. "Emily, ma'am, enjoy tonight. Sleep well, because this may be the last peaceful night you ever have." Emily burst out laughing. "What? Another threat? You're an ant, Ethan. Don't pretend you can bite an elephant. Get out." Ethan opened the door. Cold night air hit his face. He stepped outside. Bam! The door slammed shut behind him. 2 locks clicked. Ethan stood on the porch, staring at the European-style mansion one last time. The house where he had endured 5 years of humiliation. The house where he had cared for Mr. Richard Harrison with genuine love. "Goodbye, hell," he whispered. He walked through the gate, dragging his suitcase. He had nowhere to go. Maybe the small neighborhood.
"Yes," Samuel Jenkins asked calmly as he started the engine. "Kicking you out in the middle of the night," he continued, glancing sideways. "Exactly as Mr. Harrison predicted," Ethan replied quietly. Jenkins let out a short laugh. "Greedy people rarely disappoint. Don't worry, I've booked you a hotel room for tonight. Get some rest. Eat well, take a hot shower. You'll need your strength." Ethan frowned slightly. "Why, sir?" Jenkins turned, a knowing grin spreading across his face. "Because the day after tomorrow is the reading of the will. I sent the official invitations to Emily and Margaret this afternoon via express courier. They'll probably open them tomorrow morning." "They will come," Jenkins said confidently. "They have to. In the letter I wrote, 'Attendance at the reading of the estate of the late Mr. Richard Harrison is mandatory for asset disbursement.'" Jenkins chuckled darkly. "They'll come running like flies to a carcass." Ethan leaned back into the soft leather seat and closed his eyes. Mr. Harrison's face appeared clearly in his mind. "Just a little longer, sir. Justice is almost here." Meanwhile, inside the mansion, back in the luxurious house, Emily and Margaret clinked their wine glasses together. "Finally, that parasite is gone," Margaret said with satisfaction. "Tomorrow we start a new life, Em. I want a new car. The old Alfred is outdated. Let's replace it with a Rolls-Royce Ghost." "No problem, Mom," Emily laughed. "Dad's inheritance won't run out for 7 generations." Their laughter echoed through the house. They celebrated a victory that didn't exist. They had no idea that the brown envelope stamped with a prestigious law firm's seal lying unopened on the living room table was the death knell of their arrogance. The morning of the will reading. That morning, the atmosphere in Mr. Harrison's mansion felt different. Emily and Margaret sat on their favorite leather sofas, legs crossed elegantly, dressed in their finest outfits, ready to receive what they believed was a financial windfall. Across from them, Samuel Jenkins sat calmly, opening a thick stack of legal documents. But there was one empty chair beside him. "Who exactly are we waiting for?" Emily asked impatiently, glancing at her watch. "Can't we just get this over with?" Margaret scoffed. "Why wait? Everything's obviously going to us anyway." Jenkins lifted his gaze, cold and unhurried. "Please be patient, Emily, Mrs. Margaret. We are waiting for the primary heir." "Primary heir?" Margaret laughed mockingly. "What ghost is that? Richard only had one wife and one daughter. Don't make up stories." At that exact moment, the front door opened. Firm footsteps echoed across the marble floor. A man entered the living room. He wore a perfectly fitted long-sleeved batik silk shirt, black tailored trousers, and polished leather shoes. His hair was slicked back neatly. His face looked refreshed, commanding. Emily and Margaret froze. Their mouths fell open. It was Ethan, not the worn-out, submissive Ethan who smelled of medicated oil and sleepless nights. This was a different man, a leader. "What are you doing here?" Margaret shouted, jumping to her feet, pointing with a trembling finger. "Where's security? Security, where's security?" "Sit down, Mrs. Margaret," Jenkins snapped sharply. The authority in his voice instantly crushed her courage. "Ethan is here by my invitation. He is a party of legal interest." Ethan walked calmly across the room and took the empty seat beside Jenkins. He stared at Emily and Margaret, cold, sharp, unsmiling. "Let's begin," Ethan said quietly. Emily snorted. "Probably got Dad's old motorcycle back, acting all important." Jenkins began reading the document aloud. "Based on notarial will deed number 45, signed 3 days prior to the passing of the late Mr. Richard Harrison, I hereby read the distribution of his estate." Emily and Margaret leaned forward. Their eyes gleamed with greed. "First," he continued, pausing deliberately, "to my wife Margaret and my daughter Emily." He stopped. "I leave nothing." Silence. A suffocating silence, like an explosion muted at its source. "What?" Emily blinked, certain she'd misheard. "Second," Jenkins continued firmly, "all outstanding credit card debts under the names of Emily and Margaret, accumulated over the last 5 years, shall remain their personal responsibility and shall not be covered by any corporate or estate assets." "Wait, wait!" Margaret screamed, her face turning ghostly pale. "This is wrong. You read it wrong. Read it again." "Third," Jenkins said louder, overpowering her screams, "all movable and immovable assets, including this residence, properties in California, the majority shares of Harrison Group, time deposits totaling several $1,000,000, and the vintage automobile collection are hereby transferred in full to the only person who cared for me until my final breath." Jenkins turned his head. "To my son-in-law, Ethan." Boom. Emily jumped off the sofa. "This is a lie! This is fake! You planned this!" She snatched the will from the table, reading it with trembling hands. Her eyes widened when she saw it. Her father's bloody thumbprint, a mark she knew all too well. "No! Impossible!" she screamed hysterically. "Dad would never be this cruel to me." She crumpled the paper and threw it at Ethan. "What did you do to him? Did you brainwash him, you snake?" Margaret, snapping out of shock, lunged forward like a furious lioness. "You bastard! Give me back my house!" Ethan caught her wrist effortlessly before her nails reached his face. His grip tightened. Margaret gasped in pain. "Let go of my mother!" Emily screamed, rushing forward to strike Ethan's chest. Ethan stood up. At 6 feet tall, he towered over them. Enough, he roared. His voice thundered through the room, making the glass cabinets tremble. He flung Margaret's arm aside, sending her stumbling back onto the sofa. You say this is fake? Ethan's voice shook with restrained fury. You ask why Dad was so heartless? Ask yourselves. Where were you when he was convulsing? In Paris? Where were you when he needed oxygen? Shopping for designer bags? Where were you when he was dying? At a luxury dinner? Oh, please, Emily scoffed. That's old news. We didn't know. If we did, we'd have come home. He was just a useless old man anyway. Even dying, he still caused trouble. He should have died earlier. Slap! The sound cracked through the room. Emily's head snapped to the side. She collapsed onto the floor, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. She stared up at Ethan in disbelief. You hit me. Watch your mouth, Ethan hissed, his eyes blazing. Never insult my father again. He suffered because of animals like you. Margaret screamed and grabbed a flower vase and swung it at Ethan's head. But Ethan was faster. The vase shattered against the wall. Then, slap. Margaret fell beside her daughter, her elegant bun undone, hair in disarray, 5 red fingerprints burning across her cheek. That's for 5 years of humiliation, Ethan said coldly, and for abandoning my father in his suffering. The room fell to a deathly silence. Only suppressed sobs remained. Jenkins watched silently. Justice, finally served. Ethan straightened his collar and looked down at the 2 women now kneeling where he once stood. Listen carefully, he said, calm but lethal. This house is legally mine. You are trespassers. He pointed to the door. Get out. Ethan, please, Margaret cried. We made a mistake. This is our home. There is no we. There is only the owner and parasites. Where are we supposed to go? Emily sobbed. Our wallets are empty. Our credit cards are blocked. Ethan, please. I'm your wife. Ex-wife, Ethan corrected. The divorce papers will reach the court tomorrow. He grabbed both of them and dragged them mercilessly towards the front gate. They screamed in pain. Ethan didn't care. He shoved them through the gate, sending them crashing onto the hot asphalt. Our clothes, our jewelry, Emily screamed, trying to crawl back inside. Ethan blocked the gate like a wall. Everything inside was bought with my father's money. That means it's mine now. You leave with the clothes on your backs, exactly how you tried to throw me out. You're cruel, Margaret sobbed. This isn't cruelty, Ethan replied. This is justice. He looked at them, bruised, broken, and suddenly poor. Go earn your own food. Feel how hard it is to scrape for money you used to waste so easily. Clang. Ethan shut the iron gate.
His voice was calm, yet carried unquestionable authority. This building was once a private residence, Ethan said, standing behind the podium. But the late Mr. Richard Harrison entrusted me with a message. Wealth does not follow us to the grave, only goodness does. He paused, letting the words settle. Therefore, today I officially donate this property as a free community health center for underprivileged senior citizens. May this become a lasting act of charity for Mr. Harrison in heaven. Thunderous applause erupted. Local officials, physicians from the Harrison Community Foundation, hospital administrators, and neighborhood residents rose to their feet, clapping in unison. Ethan smiled faintly, his eyes glistening as he looked up at the sky. Dad, look at your house now. It's filled with prayers, not reckless shopping and vanity. A stark contrast. Elsewhere in the city, on the opposite side of town, the contrast was brutal. In a narrow, filthy alley in Brooklyn, inside a suffocating 10 by 10 foot rental room, misery festered. Ouch! It's hot! Emily screamed. Hot oil had splashed onto her hand as she struggled to fry cheap slices of tofu. Her once flawless face now looked dull, greasy, and covered in acne. No more skincare, no more luxury treatments. Her hair, once styled flawlessly, was now tied carelessly with a rubber band from a takeout bag. "Stop yelling, Emily," Margaret snapped from the corner of the room. "My head is already killing me, the neighbors blasting trashy music again." Margaret's condition was far worse. The former socialite was now painfully thin, drained by stress. She sat on a deflated folding mattress, sewing buttons onto a neighbor's shirt. Yes, once a woman of high society, Margaret was now a freelance seamstress, surviving job to job for a few dollars. "This is all your fault, Mom," Emily shouted, throwing the spatula onto the floor. "If you hadn't forced me to buy that stupid Hermes bag, if you had let me sell your jewelry to pay for Dad's treatment, Ethan wouldn't have turned against us." "My fault?" Margaret slammed her sewing kit shut. "You were the one desperate to go to Paris. You were the one disgusted by taking care of your own father. If you were a proper wife, you would have known how to manipulate him so he wouldn't abandon you." "Manipulate him?" Emily cried. "He blocked my number. Security threw me out of his office like trash." Emily collapsed on the cracked plastic mat covering the dirt floor, sobbing uncontrollably. They were trapped, locked in a vicious cycle of blame. Their wealth was gone. Their designer bags had been sold for pennies at a flea market because they needed fast cash. The money vanished instantly, swallowed by crushing credit card debt, interest tightening around their necks like a noose. Their high society friends had disappeared the moment poverty showed its face. The news that broke them. Suddenly, Emily's phone, its screen cracked, buzzed. A local news notification. She tapped it. A live stream appeared. On the small screen, she saw Ethan. Her ex-husband, the man she once forced to kneel and lick the floor, was now being interviewed by a national television network as an inspiring young entrepreneur. In the video, Ethan said calmly, "My key to success is simple. Honor your parents while they're still alive. They are the keys that open the doors of blessing. And never underestimate sincere people because life's wheel always turns." Emily stared at the screen, her chest tightening. Standing beside Ethan was an elegant woman wearing a soft shawl, the chief medical director of the new clinic. The doctor looked at Ethan with admiration and deep respect. "Mom, look, it's Ethan." Emily's voice trembled. Margaret crawled closer, squinting at the screen. Her eyes widened, taking in the grandeur of the event. The luxury convoy, the official vehicles, the media attention. That should have been ours," Margaret whispered, her mouth hung open. "That's Richard's money. That's our money." "No," Emily said quietly, turning off the phone before breaking down completely. "It's not ours anymore." She hugged her knees tightly. "We threw away diamonds just to end up digging through garbage. We lost, Mom, completely." Their cries of regret were drowned out by the roar of passing traffic in the alley. No one cared. The world kept moving, leaving behind those who never learned how to value human beings. At the cemetery. That evening, after the ceremony ended, Ethan drove alone to Greenwood Cemetery, Brooklyn. He carried a bouquet of tuberose flowers, his father-in-law's favorite. The grave was immaculate, fresh green grass, a solid black marble headstone engraved with dignity. Richard Harrison. Ethan knelt, gently brushing the stone. "Rest in peace, sir," he said softly. A cool evening breeze rustled the frangipani trees nearby. "My duty is complete.
Your house has become a field of charity. Your company is profitable again, and your employees are taken care of." He paused. "And they," Ethan exhaled slowly, "they've received the lesson life owed them." He placed the flowers down. "Thank you for trusting me with everything. I promise I won't become like them. I'll protect this trust until the day I meet you again." He stood, straightened his suit, and walked towards the exit. Freedom. His phone rang. "Hello, Mr. Sanjaya?" "Mr. Ethan," the lawyer replied. "The divorce papers were officially filed with the state court today. You are now legally single. Congratulations on starting a new life free from parasites." Ethan smiled in relief. A massive burden lifted completely from his shoulders. "Thank you. Tomorrow, let's begin the orphanage project. Ready any time, boss." Ethan ended the call. He got into his car, started the engine, and drove into the glowing streets of New York at dusk. In the rearview mirror, the shadows of his painful past slowly faded away, replaced by a clear, straight road illuminated ahead. Karma was complete. Justice had stood tall, and the discarded son-in-law had become the true victor.